3, and the Finance Committee is called to order. Need a motion to accept the minutes from the committee meeting held on June 4th.
Move for favorable action.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting from June 18th.
Move for favorable action.
Have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. First item on the list is on page 1, police personnel uniforms. Good evening, Major. If you could just state your name for the record, please.
Major Rathman from the Warwick Police Department, sir.
Go ahead, Major.
Good evening. I'm requesting spending authorization for $30,000 under a 612 alteration of contract for police personnel uniforms. This permission was to increase the bid to 2017-186 from $57,000 to $87,000. If approved, these funds will be utilized for uniform costs for newly hired recruits, promoted officers to cover uniforms damaged in the line of duty as well. These requested funds will be through the end of the current contract, which expires in 12/11 of 2018. Funding will be from budget code 30-260, sir.
Major, do you know what the amount is in budget code 30-260 right now, what the available balance is?
Yes, sir. So under the fiscal year that just ended, we had a available budget of $1,940. Percent used was 9787. The budgeted allocation was for 87,000, sir.
7,000. Okay. Thank you for that, Major. Any questions from members of the committee? Sir.
Major, these are for as needed and for new recruits?
That's correct. As needed for new recruits, promotions, and damaged items as they occur, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Please.
Stacia Heiler, Ward 9. How many new recruits do we have right now? Like, how can we get that number? Because it has to do with uniforms, so I was just curious how many more
Major.
we recently got. Thank you.
So the next academy class, which will be beginning the end of this month, beginning of August, is for 8 recruits. The academy uniform is $311.50 for each, $1,550 for the actual police department uniforms, a total of $1,862 per person, or a projected of $14,896 just for those 8 recruits that are beginning.
Thank you.
We have the possibility of additional recruits once the recruitment process is completed with transfers, and we have one projected promotion in August. That would be for a rank of sergeant of 441. So we're just over 15,000 projections right now.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the public? Hearing none, need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Second.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Major. Welcome back, by the way. Item 2, found on page 6, structural firefighting helmets. Chief?
Sir, how are you doing tonight?
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Warwick Fire Department recommends bid 2018-309 structural firefighting helmets be awarded to Firematic Supply Company of Milford, Mass. Firematic Supply Company submitted an exception to the bid. Although they were not the lowest bid, they were lower than the company that bid the specified helmet. Reason we'll accept that is it's one of the brands that we currently use. We've had very few issues with them, and they were the only company with a 10-year warranty on the helmet. The other ones were 5. This bid is from 1 year from the date of bid for a total bid award of $7,500. Should it be granted, it will come out of code 35235. Currently, there's $59,623 in that line item, and these helmets will be on an as-needed basis.
So, Chief, I get the issue of the warranty, 10-year warranty versus 5. That's that's important, I think, and worth money. Why didn't they bid the second year? So
I don't know why they didn't bid the second year. But it was,
what's that?
I don't know why they didn't bid the second year. But it was already, the bid was already received, so I couldn't have them go back and change it.
Okay, but you're only going out from 1 year,
For
anyways,
1 year.
right? Okay. Yes. And how many helmets do you think
I wish they had a 2-year bid, but
how many helmets do you think we're talking about here?
So currently I have 3 in stock. Depending on if we put a class on or whatnot, I could see us purchasing 20 to 25 helmets in the next year. If we put a recruit class on, depending on the size, that'd be a significant amount. But if we don't, we won't be purchasing those helmets.
So you're talking $240, $250 difference between the low bidder and the ones that you folks are recommending, but for that, we're getting an additional 5 years on the guarantee.
The one that was the lowest bidder, we don't have that brand right now, so I don't know what how it's going to hold up, and if we're going to have problems with it. And I don't want to get parts for another series of helmets.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Questions from members of the public? Hearing none, need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Chief. 2018-340, consulting services for stormwater management, found on page 10. Hello, Christy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Public Works Department is requesting to award the bid for consulting services for stormwater management to Crossman Engineering in the amount of $54,100, 1 year from date of award.
Christy, were they the low bidder?
Yes.
And this is a one-year contract?
Yes.
Any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public, please?
Stacia Heiler, Ward 9. What are we getting for the $54,000? Where are we? What are they doing? What do we get for this amount of money? I'd like it all broken down, please. Thank you.
Christy, could you comment on that, or? Okay. Eric, please. Sure.
Eric Kendinga, City Warwick
Hi, Eric.
Engineering Department. Basically, there are 8 tasks involved in this project. First is to revise the city's illicit discharge detection and elimination plan for screening and monitoring of the outfalls and interconnections with other cities and the state connections.
Speak. Excuse me. If you want to speak, address the chair. Eric, speak into the microphone, please, so everyone can hear.
The first task is to revise the city's illicit discharge detection elimination plan for screening and monitoring of the outfalls of the city and interconnections with the state and other municipalities. The second task is to amend the city's stormwater management plan to include this new IDDE plan. The third task is to investigate target priority areas that were identified in our consent decree with the RIDEM. Task 4 is to take the information found in Task 3 and incorporate it into the city's GIS database for inclusion in the 2018 MS4 annual report. Task 5 is to prepare a report based on the results of the investigations, revise the ranking priorities of the outfalls, and to schedule inclusion, or also to include that in the MS4 annual report. Task 6 is to conduct dry weather surveys of 100 outfalls selected by the city. Task 7 is to conduct 20 wet weather surveys and take samples. And Task 8 will be to deliver the samples to an approved laboratory for analysis.
Eric, I don't see that, what you just described, those different things in our package. Anyone else see any of that? And I'm saying that because if these type of things would be included in our package, not only would we be able to see them and analyze that information, that content, so would members of the public. And if we have that information ahead of time, that'll save us a lot of time over here, so we don't have to sit at the mic and ask a bunch of questions because stuff isn't in the package. So the recommendation going forward is when we have these type of things to include them in the package. Then we get to see them, and the public gets to see them, and we don't have to sit here for an hour discussing something we shouldn't have to.
So, Councilman,
Thank you.
can you add, so you like a synopsis, like basically what I did here of shortening of the tasks?
That was perfect.
Based on the,
you know, you give us 6 bullet points or
absolutely.
7, right? Boom.
Yep.
Here's what we're going to spend $54,000 on, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Boom. I'm done. I'm cool. As long as I
Absolutely.
agree with
Sure
what
thing.
you're doing, and our colleagues agree, that'll save us a lot of time and effort, and it'll explain to folks what we're doing with the money. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yes, so where are we at with meeting the DEM requirements? Because as far as them threatening to, as far as DEM, I think we were facing a potential lawsuit if we weren't meeting the MS4 requirements. So are we meeting them? Are we in compliance? Where are we with Rhode Island DEM and them suing us? Please. Thank you.
Eric, I know what the answer was the last time. Actually, I think it was myself that asked that question, but I would like that update.
Sure, correct. We're in the same situation that we were. We have the consent decree where we have to, you know, this is part of what we're doing to stay in compliance with what the state's requiring. So we're fulfilling the consent decree by taking these kinds of steps in the direction. So right now we're not under, as far as I'm aware, that they're going to sue us right now. But if we don't, you know, take care of things like this, we will be in
But
trouble.
we also have a time frame to complete the punch list that
Correct.
DEM gave us, right?
Correct.
And I think that's where the question is going.
Correct.
Is how are we on that time frame? On that punch
Generally, we
list?
have an update. Right now, we're pretty much up to date with everything that we're required to do.
Okay. And do you see any problems in completing the requirements of DEM in that time? What is that time frame? Was what, 2020 or
Well,
what was it?
there's a bunch of different time frames for each different task that they've required us to do. So, you know, it's difficult just to say right out what the time frame is. But there's like different sections that we have to abide by. So we're trying to meet the deadlines for certain things. Like these have to be done, I believe, before I don't have the exact date, but I believe for the report for the 2018 annual report. So,
But right now, you see us on track to complete the tasks that were included in that memorandum of agreement with DEM.
yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
Just a statement. We're about like 10 years overdue for meeting that requirement, if not more. I think it was supposed to be done in like 2005, so we're going on 2019. Thank you.
Sir.
Roy Dempsey, Ward 1. You know, what the last presenter indicated was this has been going on for a number of years, and we've already spent, I thought it was a couple $100,000 doing a mapping of the outfalls, and now we got testing and all this other stuff. I mean, at some point, there should have been a holistic look at this.
Okay,
It
Roy,
seems
hold
like
on,
a
hold on,
piecemeal
hold on.
approach.
This is about this issue here. I understand the history. I get it. I'm with you. I understand it. This is about what we're going to spend and how we're going to spend $54,000, which I think he explained. So the history, yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating for everybody.
Yeah, no, what nice to send a holistic look and then attack the issue instead of,
Yeah.
you know, you map it and you'll go back and all this.
Any other questions? Need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Second.
We have a motion for favor. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. 2019-045, East Natick Village Landscaping, found on page 14.
Good evening, Bill Facenti with the City of Warwick's Community
Bill.
Development Office. I'm here tonight to ask for approval in the amount of $31,105 to be awarded to Shelby Brothers Landscaping of Warwick for improvements to the Father Cherokee field area along the bikeway. We received one bid. Actually, there were two bids. One bid was rejected due to an error on their submission. With
What was the
regard-
error?
Purchasing could answer that, I'm not sure.
There is a warrant report that we're required to have filled out, and that it is a required document. It was not in there. The bidder was a first-time bidder, and he was there at the opening, and I explained it to him, and he understood wholeheartedly, and he will continue bidding with us.
Any questions from members of the committee? Sir.
Bill, I just want to commend you. I know this is something that the chairman has asked about in the past. You said that the office reached out to the vendors on the list to inquire the reason for them not submitting a bid.
Correct.
So you went the extra step. So I just want to commend you. I know that the chairman has been asking for that. So
Yeah, we reached out to about 12 of them. 4 responded. One said they forgot, and the other 3 said they were too busy.
sorry. More intel, the better. Thank you.
And echoing the Councilman's comments, yeah, thank you for that, Bill. It's good to see that these things are, you know, coming around. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Second.
We have a motion for second. We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2019-049, statistical reappraisal of all taxable properties.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Neil Dupree, Tax Assessor. As with the previous bid, I need to recuse myself from this to avoid any potential conflict of interest.
Okay, Neil, I think I want to save us all a lot of time on this. We just recently received a letter with various comments, et cetera, et cetera. I have submitted it to our legal counsel for an opinion, and at this point in time, quite frankly, I need a little more time to go through this. So having said that, I'm going to ask for a motion to hold till the August meeting.
Chairman?
Sir?
Is there a problem with holding it till August?
In all honesty, this project probably should have started in January, February timeframe. So we are already under the gun. I understand the issues. But just so
Mr. Chairman, maybe we could bring it to the floor without a recommendation, and our attorney could give us an opinion when he arrives,
All right, that's fine
if he
with
doesn't
me.
have it up here. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, need a motion to move to the floor for discussion.
We still got to do public comments.
Okay. Anyone, is there any public comment on this?
Yes, Stacia Hyler, Ward 9. Can you share what's going on, what this letter is, and make it public, and why this should have started in February, and what's happening here?
Well, as far as the letter goes, as the council president alluded to, we'll have our legal counsel speak to that. As far as the time schedule, I don't know what the time schedule is. Anyone want to comment on the time schedule?
Oh, I'm sorry. So how does the public ask questions if we don't know what you're going to move to the floor for discussion?
The bid is what's on the docket. You can comment on the bid. There's been a legal challenge to the bid process, so that may or may not have an executive session component to it because it's legal advice. I don't know if Mr. DePasquale, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, Alan Booth can speak to the timeline. I think it's a well-placed question. Alan?
Alan Booth.
Hi, Alan.
Generally, you should have 9 months to do a revaluation. Revaluation is required by the state. Right now, we've got 5 months to do it. If we push this off to August and they don't start till September, they won't have enough time to actually do a good revaluation. You probably have to petition the state and get an extension for an entire year. We're already behind schedule.
My understanding was, as far as a bid goes, how many bids were at the last time it was bid, how many bids were received?
We got one bid.
Okay. And I believe that is probably going to be the opinion of our city solicitor, that if there's one bid, you can't have somebody challenging a bid that wasn't a bidder. And so the public certainly entitled to ask questions regarding the one bid that we received, whether somebody can object or not when they're not even a bidder is a question that I think we need to reserve for for our council solicitor to give us an opinion.
Mr. President, perhaps Billy could answer that?
Sure.
Bill? This bill?
I think it was John that researched the issue, not you.
I would defer to John on the,
that's fine.
the formal opinion that will be advised, but my understanding is the council president is accurate in his description.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will wait till our legal counsel gets here, excuse me, I'm not done talking.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So when our legal counsel gets here, he can advise us as to the position with this. In the meantime, go right ahead.
So whose fault was it that this came in not in the correct amount of time? Because it was the former administration, so they were responsible, and the current city solicitor is currently responsible for this not, right? Am I correct?
Well, I think what we're going to do
so
is...
you're going to ask the same guy for advice? I'm sorry. So you're going to ask the same city solicitor for advice that didn't meet the requirements?
No, what we're talking about is the city council solicitor. And what you're going to be talking about is the bid.
Okay.
That's what we're going to have for conversation, is your comments about the bid, whether you agree with it, you don't agree with it, et cetera. That's what the comments are going to be directed to.
Thank you, Councilman Lattiser.
Sure.
I don't even see why it's even being moved to the floor and being considered at all when it wasn't in on time. You have to petition the state to get an extension, and there's only one bidder. So how do you know that another company didn't put a bid in because of this whole screw up? I mean, that's the bottom line. So I just don't even really understand why you're even looking at this bid.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about when you say a whole screw up.
Well, because it's late, so 9 months. They should have started in February, and it didn't. So how do you know that didn't affect the bidding process? Because the time frame was off, and then it didn't allow other companies to put a bid in. I don't even understand, why is there just one bidder?
So, if I could, Council Chairman, that wasn't the issue. That it was, and I can't speak for the previous administration, and I'm not saying that procedurally those aren't good questions. I think you alluded to the fact that it probably should have been done quicker. Unfortunately, that's what's here before us. The council solicitor will be here shortly to give us his opinion. I believe his opinion is that everything was done properly, and that the other company was bidding, that chose not to bid, was claiming other things other than they didn't have the opportunity to bid. And so he'll advise us as to that. More importantly, I think that we're up against it now. We need to get this done. We need to get it out. It's a state obligation. This company has done it for us in the past. And we really need to bring this to the floor to have an explanation as to, the legal consequences of what happened. But I don't think there's any concern that anybody said they didn't get an opportunity to bid, to answer your question.
Okay, well, no, that's good to know. And again, the Avedisian administration, unfortunately, they knew about this deadline and didn't get it before you. One of many things that wasn't done correctly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have...
One last comment.
Sir, yes.
I believe that this current go-round of bidding was, in fact, proper. All the questions that were asked of me as the agent were answered, responded to efficiently. And I also believe that, Vision Appraisal has the manpower. They're a big enough company to come in and get started and get this job done on time if we move it along.
Okay, thank you. So the recommendation is to move to the floor for discussion. Need a motion?
Motion to move to the floor for discussion.
We have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you. 2019-50 overhead door replacement.
And that would be PCR 11418.
Let the record indicate that bid 2019-049 now becomes PCR 11418. Move to the floor for discussion. Overhead door replacement found on page 20. Christie?
Public Works is requesting to award the overhead door bid to Overhead Door Company of Providence, the amount of $20,000 for 1 year.
Christie, were they the low bidder?
I'm sorry?
Were they the low bidder?
They were the only bidder.
Only bidder. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Sir. At the podium, please. Yes, you do need that. So, for all that's here, just so you all know that when you're going to comment before any of the committees here at the City Council, you need to come to the podium I'm not trying to give you a hard time, sir, but you need to come to the podium because this is all being recorded, it's audio, it's visual, and you need to state your name for the record so that if we need to refer back to this at any point in time, we'll know. And as was discussed earlier, the sound system in here is not so good, to put it mildly, and it's difficult sometimes for folks to understand what you're saying because they can't hear you. So try to speak into the microphone clearly. But
well, that's exactly why I'm here speaking right now, sir. You notice how I have the mic. So could you please...
Start with your name, sir.
My name is Jim Burns, a Warwick resident.
Okay.
Could you please ask the people who are speaking to hold the mic up to their mouth, so because maybe I'm going deaf, but I can't hear them. Okay, thank you, that's all.
Thank you, okay. All right, any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none. Any members from the council? All right, need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 2019-52 Security System Monitoring Maintenance, found on page 23.
Departments are requesting to award to electronic alarm systems for...
Sir, excuse me. If anyone, okay, so let's just put this out to everyone again. If you would like to speak for anything, about anything, you need to go to the podium and be recognized by the chair of the respective committee or by the council president. I will not tolerate outbursts from anyone in the audience, okay? Just so we're all clear on that. Please speak into the mic.
Departments are requesting to award the bid for security system monitoring and maintenance to electronic alarm systems. Public Works is requesting $6,224.40. The Animal Shelter is requesting $239.40, and the Police Department is requesting $239.40 for a one-year period.
Try another mic, please. Okay, Christy, to the mic, please.
3 departments are requesting to award the bid for security system monitoring and maintenance to electronic alarm systems, $6,224.40 to Public Works and Water Department, $239.40 to the Animal Shelter, and $239.40 to the Police Department for a one-year period.
Christy, how much is in account number 66340?
$168,000.
$168,000? Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Sir.
Christy, this is a Warwick company, correct, getting this contract?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee, members of the council, members of the public? Please.
Stacia Highway, Ward 9. What else do we use this line item in the budget for, $168,000? Can we just get a breakdown of what we spend with that money, please? Thank you.
I'm not going to speak for Christy, but my guess is because that isn't part of the docket in a report as to what's in the account and what you spend it on, I don't know how you're going to answer it, but you can give a basic overview of different categories that we spend it on.
We use this for all types of service contracts specifically. If she would like a breakdown of what we use, she can certainly submit a request through the city clerk's office. We can provide the information.
Any other questions? Please.
I would submit a request, but I'm sorry. I would submit a request. I just don't want to get charged $150 for it. So I figured I'd come here and ask the question. So thank you.
Christy,
I appreciate it.
send me the information. Okay, I'll have it. And if anybody wants to talk about it, you can call me. Okay, thank you. Security system monitoring maintenance. Any other questions from members of the committee or the public? Give me a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. 2019-54, preventive maintenance and repairs of compressors. And that is found on page 30.
The department's requesting to award this bid to the only bidder, excuse me, Atlantic Compressor, in the amount of $6,000 for 1 year.
Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
A motion for favor. Will we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. (2019-55) repair, rebuild hydraulic cylinders. That is found on page 34.
Department's requesting to award this bid in the amount of $20,000 to CNC Hydraulics and Tri-Power Sales for a 1 year period.
Christie, anyone else bid on this?
No, there was, sorry, yes, there were 2 bidders. We were requesting to award to both.
Okay. How many people were submitted or given notice to bid?
5.
5. Any phone calls to those other 3 that didn't bid?
No.
No. Any questions from members of the committee? Sir.
And one of the companies is a Warwick company, so I assume if they can do the repairs, you'd go there first as the closer and get the things turned around.
Depends on the type of repair, but yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions from members of the committee? Council, I'm sorry. Any questions from members of the public? Sir.
What are we buying for $20,000? Are we buying numerous repairs during the year? Are we giving them a carte blanche? You got $20,000 to spend during the year? I mean, what are we doing here?
Christie?
With this bid, we repair cylinders on multiple types of vehicles and equipment. For example, a 3-stage cylinder on a sanitation truck is approximately $3,000 to repair, which is why we ask for $20,000.
Wait a minute, I don't get that. So you got to repair for $3,000, you're asking for $20. What's the correlation there?
It's if we have to send one of the cylinders on a sanitation vehicle out, it's approximately $3,000 to have it fixed. So if we have 4 trucks that need cylinder repairs we need to send out, this gives us the ability to do that.
And that's coming out of Budget Code 65-314. So you are looking for an award up to $20,000.
Correct.
Is that it? Okay. And that goes through this fiscal year as well as 2 months into next fiscal year.
Correct.
And obviously, when there is an expenditure, there's an accounting for that, there's tracking records, so that if this council wants to get receipts or documentation of whatever repairs were done, your department will be able to provide that.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the public? Certainly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Equipment repair, 65-314 has a budget of $250,000. What's the current total amount that's available in that line item, please, right now? Do we know? Thank you.
Christie?
Well, when I looked at it earlier today, it had about $245,000 in it.
Okay. Sorry? Give me the mic.
Looking at last year's close of the budget year, there was $83,000 remaining.
Actually, $82,965.79, if anybody wants it to the penny. Any other questions? All right, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
A motion for second. We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. 2019-58 Quick Pro Dry, found on page 37.
Department's requesting to award the purchase of the Quick Pro Dry in the amount of $3,000 for 1 year to Site One Landscape Supply.
Christie, how much is in that account right now?
$3,000.
Okay. So, with the new budget, it was funded at $3,000.
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
A motion for favorable, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
2019-059 HVAC maintenance and repair, found on page 40.
Department's requesting to award this bid to CAM HVAC and Construction in the amount of $60,000 for a 1-year period. There were 3 bidders. One was disqualified for not providing the bid bond as required.
I can't hear you, Christie.
1 bidder was disqualified for not providing the bid bond as required.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Sir.
This question goes back to the prior. How do you control what's being spent, how it's being spent, what it's being spent on? I know you had trouble with batteries at one point. There was never any accounting for all the batteries that were, the amounts that were spent on batteries, but never any controls on it. So now we've got another bid, $60,000. How do we know where it's going?
Roy, I think you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your question is, you said something about the past. I'm talking about this bid. So I think your question is, going forward, if this bid is approved, what is the accounting method or accountability for the $60,000, right?
Thank you very much.
And I think, for me, the answer is, we got a new mayor in the corner office. I think that's the answer for me. Christie?
We had previously discussed this bid when I had asked for an increase, and this is to make repairs to the heat and air conditioning, things like that. This is the new bid that we have just advertised. We are asking for $60,000. We do not have an HVAC person on staff right now, and I'm not sure if that's something that is even scheduled to be filled. So we need to be able to have a company that will come in and make any sort of repairs to our buildings.
Okay, so Christie, in 3 months from now or 6 months from now, if any member of the council or member of the public were to submit a request to DPW for an accounting from the date of this award until whenever that day is that someone would like a record of what happened, we'll have that record available, correct?
Yes, I do have that. And actually, as well, I had sent you one that you had asked for previously. I'm assuming you received it.
Correct. Okay, any other questions? Need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
Have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. HVAC maintenance and repair contract for Thayer Warburton.
This is essentially the same function as the previous bid. However, because of the nature of the ice rink and specifically the compressor room, we are requesting to award to CAM HVAC for the general maintenance that the building requires and to environmental systems for any issues within the compressor room in the amount of $43,000 for a 1-year period.
That's found on page 43, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. So if we have a problem or you guys have a problem, or somebody has a problem with this, with these compressor, what happens?
The rink manager calls ESI.
No. I mean, if this compressor just decides it's not going to cooperate today, what's the impact on the folks who use that arena or the members of the community, et cetera? What's the impact?
Well, particularly this time of year, it will be relatively quickly for the ice to melt. We'd have to remove anything remaining on the floor. We'd have to get the compressors fixed, and we'd have to reinstall the ice surface, which also costs money between water and paint and the line kits that we need to purchase. So, as well as any lost revenue, which right now, if we had to close even for a week, we'd probably lose about $9,000 a week.
9,000?
Yes.
Okay. And how much is in that account right now?
In the
41,331.
$45,000.
45,000. I have to say to the department heads that have been before us so far this evening that I appreciate the fact that you all know what the numbers are in those accounts. Thank you. So how much did we spend on maintenance and repair at Thayer Warburton last year?
Last year with ESI, we had a 3.3 at the beginning of the summer. That was $21,960. We had 3 major repairs. There were $17,433.52, and that totals $39,393.52.
Okay. Any questions from members of the public? I'm sorry, members of the committee.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a quick question. You mentioned in a last meeting or the meeting before that the air conditioners were old in age. Is there a plan, or is there an idea of a plan being developed to replace the aging air conditioners, considering with the new technology we have, the affordability of them, the benefits that are out there for purchasing new ones, and the savings, the long-term savings and updating instead of paying for repair after repair?
Well, that's something that will have to be discussed probably within the mayor's office and the finance department. I'm not sure how much money is left in the building bond for any of that to take place. And you know, that would probably where the funding would have to come from. So that's something that would have to be discussed.
But that, what I'm asking, that's something that hasn't been discussed as of yet?
Not
from
to my
DPW?
knowledge.
No? Okay, thank you.
Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
2019-061, rebuilt transmissions, found on page 47.
Department's requesting to award this bid to all vendors in the amount of $30,000 for a one-year period.
Why all vendors?
Their prices were all relatively close together. If I were to have to pick certain ones,
pick 2.
Can I pick 3?
Pick 2.
New England, Detroit, and Quaker.
New England, Detroit, and
Quaker transmission.
Quaker. And the reason for those 2?
New England, Detroit can fix the issues that we have with our sanitation vehicles and our fire apparatus.
Christy, on the sheet that I'm looking at, I don't... Wait a minute. Hold on. I don't see a New England, Detroit.
It's the top one. It's Power Product Systems, LLC, DBA, New England, Detroit, Diesel.
It's what? Oh, okay, got it. Okay. And so there's a difference between DeFeo and Power Products. So why not DeFeo?
Well, the issue that we have is that it's either either rebuilding or rebuilt. So our smaller trucks, we send to Quaker for those transmission issues. For our larger trucks, we get a rebuilt transmission from the vendor and put it in ourselves. So New England, Detroit is closer than, you know, any place in Connecticut, and obviously the one in Indiana and the one in Charlotte probably wouldn't have used, but
And I
left
see
it as an
that
option.
you're picking what appears to be a balance between Quaker's no-bid stuff and Power Products and vice versa, to
Right.
be able to meet the needs of the department?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
You want to amend it to these two?
I'm sorry. Yes, give me an amended motion.
I'll make a motion to amend the bid awards to include just Power Product Systems and Quaker Transmission.
That'll be PCR 115-18.
Seconded.
I'm sorry, Councilman, repeat that again?
Sure. I make a motion for, to amend the bids and just to award it to Power Product Systems and Quaker Transmission.
Seconded.
All right, 2019-061 becomes PCR 115-18. The motion is to amend to the, for the award to Power Products and Quaker Transmissions. We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Thank you, Christie. Appreciate that cooperation, thank you. (2019-67) fire alarm inspections and testing. That is found on page 52.
This bid is inclusive of 5 different departments. We are collectively recommending award to Encore Fire Services in the amount of $6,776. There was one bidder that was a lower bid, however, based on the paperwork that we have, or the emails I should say, they cannot purchase our parts, nor can they program our fire alarm panels.
Say that again into the mic, please. Say that again.
They cannot purchase our parts, and they cannot program our fire alarm panels.
Can't purchase what parts?
Parts, any replacement parts that we need for our fire alarms.
Why?
I don't know why. I reached out to all the vendors that submitted a bid. I asked them if they could meet the requirement as stated in the letter before you in your bid package. And I got responses from everybody. All the other vendors basically just said, yes, we can. The low bidder did not really give us a direct answer, but they are the current vendor that we have now. And I have an issue at one building right now where I have 2 devices that need to be replaced, and they cannot purchase them for us to replace them.
So the current vendor we have now
Yes.
was the low bidder?
Yes.
Okay. And so has anything changed in terms of equipment since, let me back up. How long have you been using the current vendor?
We've been using the current vendor for quite a while.
How much is quite a while?
No, probably since I've been with our department.
How many years was that? 20?
I've been in DPW for 8.5.
Oh, okay. So, Mr. Blake, I want to hear, how long have we been using the current vendor? Please.
Electronic Alarms is the current vendor right now, and they've probably been in use for, I'd guess, a good 10 years. However, Councilman, the reason this escaped us, and it was only recently, we have had the city upgraded in fire alarms, and the new model of panel and devices that we're using is proprietary, and they do not have the license for that. And I guess last year we didn't have them all online, so it was kind of looked over to that point, but Then when they did find discovery on anything that we had out of warranty, we had to wind up buying the parts and pieces, primarily because they don't have the rights to do that. They just don't have that. And
So
that's why
we
you
have the
couldn't-
rights to do that? You said we had to purchase the pieces because they couldn't purchase them.
Correct.
So we have the right to purchase
We
them,
do.
but the vendor doesn't?
We do.
How's that?
When I bought into the system, we bought into the rights.
Okay.
Okay?
And what's the difference, what was the difference between this bidder and the low bidder?
It was a difference of approximately $2,300. However, the rates for the low bidder, service rates, the first half hour is $105. Each additional half hour is $80. So 1 full hour is $185. The recommended awarding bidder is $138 an hour. The markup on parts for the low bidder is 50%. And the second lowest bidder is 20%. And I just wanted to add as well that the reason we haven't had a big issue with replacing parts right now is because for the most part, our fire alarms were under warranty from the date they went online. So if we had a problem with any of the fire alarm components, we would call the company that installed it to come out and fix it. So that's why this is presenting now.
Are those new systems still under warranty?
The ones at the rink and the pool are not. They're the oldest ones. Those are the first ones we had done.
All right, well, so I don't get it. We've had a particular vendor for at least 10 years. The equipment's all the same. Nothing's changed. No? Oh, the mic.
All of the equipment has changed.
Changed when?
Within the last 2 years.
Last 2 years.
Every piece in every building.
Is this bid always a one-year bid?
It's
It's always a one-year bid?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Sir?
Again, I see that you reached out, you saw that there was an issue, reached out to all the bidders, and you asked them specifically if they could make this replacement, taking that extra step, so if something does happen, we're not running into it after the fact. So I appreciate that, taking that extra step, and I think that helps with efficiency within the city. So thank you.
We try to make the best recommendation for the city.
Any other questions from committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions, comments from members of the public? Sir? Identify yourself for the record, please.
Good evening, Henry Gazika. I'm General Manager of Electronic Alarms located here in Warwick on West Shore Road. We've been servicing the city's alarm systems along with the school department systems for well over 40 years. We're about to go into our 50th year in business. I wanted to come here tonight because I'm a little baffled as to why a modification to the previous bid over the years now includes a clause that says that we have to be certified in a proprietary panel.
Excuse me, Mr. Gazika?
Yes.
So, were you one of the bidders?
I was the low bid.
You were the low bidder?
And the current holder of the bid.
Okay. And you've been servicing the school department for 40 years?
The school department and the city buildings.
Yes or no? 40 years for the school department,
40
right?
plus.
Okay. And of course, they're an autonomous body, right? So they can do whatever they want to do.
Right.
How about on the city side?
Over 40 years, starting to the 1970s when we serviced the alarm boards in the Warwick Police Station. Back when they had direct wire and then it's evolved. So
continue.
So, again, I was a bit baffled as to why we weren't awarded the bid. I received a letter saying that I was not going to be recommended. So one of the industry best practices for electrical contractors and alarm companies is anytime there's a proprietary system being specified for a new installation or an addition to a building, the manufacturer's representative comes in and does any necessary programming, whether it's Simplex, whether it's Honeywell, or a number of other vendors. And that has been the industry best practice for as long as I've been in this business. That being said, the state is perfectly clear in Rhode Island fire laws and rules, and along with the NFPA 72, it's specific as to what is required to do inspection and maintenance on systems in the state of Rhode Island. The only time a manufacturer's representative that's certified is required is during the initial system acceptance when the building is built, and beyond that when there's a need to recertify the system or reprogram it. So I don't understand why they don't want to give the inspection and testing agreement to the low bid. Beyond that, when I inquired, the city replied and said that they do not allow any subcontractors, and that's another reason why electronic alarms cannot get the bid.
Wait a minute, excuse me. Did you say that whomever you spoke to said the city does not allow subcontractors?
Yes.
Continue.
It was said that subcontractors were not going to be allowed, and then I countered that and I said, well, we use subcontractors within the city of Warwick on thousands of systems, including all the city buildings, and I cited an example, radio boxes that transmit the fire alarm signals direct to the fire station are proprietary. We have to buy them from that one vendor, and anytime they need service, we have to contact that one vendor. So in essence, either the city pays them directly or I subcontract to them. So it's a moot point. I don't understand why subcontracting is not allowed when it's never been an issue in the past with this customer, with the city of Warwick. Now, aside from that, I reached out to the state fire marshal and I reached out to the city fire alarm superintendent, and they're both in agreement with me that there's no need for this. Jeff McGuire is fire alarm superintendent, city of Warwick. I met with him, spoke with him about this. And as for buying the equipment, the state fire marshal said if they're not going to sell me the equipment, they want to know about it.
Excuse me. So you're now referencing information that you are stating was provided to you by various people, including our own city fire marshal. Do you have that in writing?
No, sir. Wasn't prepared for that tonight.
Okay. So I don't know how my colleagues feel, but I'm not going to be able to consider that unless the fire marshal is here and would like to comment about that. So I would appreciate it if you could stick to facts that you have documentation on, or if there's someone else here from a various department, whether it be DPW, fire, police, that could or will have an opportunity to refute or agree or disagree. Okay? Continue.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just on one further note on that, the fire marshal did say he met or spoke with the fire chief, and if the fire chief's here tonight, he may be...
Mr. Gazika.
Yes, sir.
Do you have that in writing from the fire marshal?
No.
See, my point is I'm uncomfortable with considering comments that you're making that our fire marshal allegedly made. I don't know if our fire marshal made those comments or not, and I don't see anyone here from the fire marshal's office to say I did or I didn't.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, we'll scratch that. I apologize. I won't refer to that. So, in summary, I would like to say, how would you feel if you bought a vehicle and you had to get your state inspection sticker at the dealer and you had no other choice? Would that be fair? And I don't think that's the intent, certainly not the intent of the law in Rhode Island for quarterly fire alarm and inspections. We're perfectly qualified in the eyes of the law, and so that's why I'm here tonight.
Okay, thank you. DPW, anything to comments?
Certainly, thank you. When Mr. Gazika speaks about the fire alarm panels that are transmitter panels, radio panels, they are bought by one vendor, the one sole owner to that. It is proprietary. Anyone can buy them and anyone can install them. Correct? Yep. But on other issues here, what we have wound up doing, Council, is that when they have gone and looked at the alarm system and found, say, a smoke detector, a heat rise detector, a heat detector that was an alarm and no longer functional, they couldn't buy it.
Who is they? To buy it. Who is they? They couldn't buy it.
The electronic alarm. That company could not buy it. We had to buy it. At that point in time, I'm not going to have them come back and put it in, because I have an electrician. I'd rather keep him on his job and his post and his design specs rather than have him pull off and put that alarm in. He is capable of doing that, and he is licensed to do that, and I have had that done. That's why when we drew up the new specifications, I wanted them to be able to, because on this new system, which is addressable, when you put in a new device, it has to be programmed. It's not something you can just go and plug in and walk away. And yes, you can call in the vendor, you can call in the Honeywell vendor and add another expense and have him come and do that. But everything is at another expense. And that's why we tried to get someone that has the priority rights to be able to program into the panel and be able to purchase the merchandise that fits with it.
So are you suggesting that if the low bidder were to call in another contractor to do whatever you're talking about, that his price will increase?
They'd have no choice, and they have.
Whoa. Are you saying that his price would increase?
No, I'm saying that he cannot do it. He can't do that.
But he can bring in a licensed vendor to do it.
At the price that is bid spec there.
Correct.
Yeah, I guess, that's a very possible thing.
Okay.
Excuse me.
The thing is, Councilman, our bids do not allow for subcontracting, and I'm sure Pat can attest to that.
Excuse me, Christy, I have a problem with, and I've heard this now a few times, where we have, our bid specs don't allow us to subcontract. How is it we subcontract snow plowing, and we subcontract sanders, and we subcontract lots of other vendors? How is it that now, all of a sudden, we can't subcontract? I'm confused with this.
Within the bid specifications.
Is that within all bid specifications?
Pat, do you?
Because we definitely do
I think unless it's
plowing,
otherwise specified.
We do it for paving, we do it for a whole lot of things. Pat?
I couldn't tell you that it's in every bid specification, but it is in this bid. I can't tell you if it's in every single bid. I'd have to look at a bid that we do, that you're referring to, that we subcontract, and I would have to assume at that point it's not in that particular bid. So where it's applicable, I believe it's there.
For a point of clarification, because it was stated publicly that the city told a vendor, we do not subcontract. Well, in fact, we do subcontract. But we're speaking in relationship to this particular bid. Says it doesn't subcontract.
I agree with you. I think that comment was made in regards to the bid that they were speaking of.
Okay. So the bidders that received these documents, I'm assuming they read the documents, I'm assuming they understood the documents, and I'm assuming they saw in that document that you can't subcontract on this particular bid. I'm assuming so. And if you didn't, shame on you. So Pat, I just want to reiterate that this particular bid said there would not be any subcontracting allowed on this bid.
I believe so. I would have to actually read that bid. I did not read that bid with that question in mind.
Okay.
Christy has, so I take her word for it. As I said, all bids it would be there if it was applicable.
So do we agree that it appears as though the hang-up is whether or not subcontracting is allowed, or whether or not it was in the bid or not in the bid? Do we agree? That seems to be the hang-up.
Well, the hang-up for us is that the low bidder does not meet the bid requirements specifically that we had included in the bid spec, that I emailed each vendor that submitted a bid. And
what is that specific requirement?
It's in your packet. I
Good.
made sure it was
Tell me
included.
what it is.
The bid requirement?
What in that bid requirement was specific?
Says the contractor must be able to work on Honeywell XLS 140 intelligent fire alarm control panel, as well as the ability to purchase and replace defective parts such as photoelectric smoke detector, monitor modules, or control relays for the duration of the contract.
And how do you determine, it says, read the beginning line again? Must be able to...
Must be able to work on Honeywell, as well as the ability to purchase and replace defective parts.
And what you are stating now is that the low bidder isn't able to purchase the parts.
The low bidder sent an email to our electrician on April 4th, 2018 at 9:56 in the morning that said, "Hi Nick, since the panel was switched to a proprietary one, Honeywell, we can replace parts but cannot order or program."
And your bid said you must?
Yes.
I'm done. Any questions from members of, any other questions from members of the community? Sir.
Henry Gazika again, electronic alarm. So it was alluded to that we were not responsive in making repairs to the system, and what I do have in writing are a number of emails that have gone unresponded. We did try to service that. We did notify the fire department on all those problems that went unresolved. So there's nothing more I can do if I don't get a response from our contacts at the city of Warwick. And that would include Joe Blake and Nick. So as a matter of fact, last month at DPW, we were escorted out of the building. We were told we're no longer supposed to be able to do the inspection. We were under contract until the end of June.
Mr. Gazika, please stick to the issues regarding the bid itself, not history. If you have issues with that, then there's certainly other venues that you can take that up with. But for this council meeting, let's stick to the issues of the bid.
Okay. Again, the state feels, based on the way the law is written, we're perfectly qualified. As for replacing equipment, I'm just going to point out to everybody you can see right there, that horn strobe light and that Honeywell pull station. There's no programming required to replace those. None. What do I test it, it doesn't work, we get a replacement part, we put it up, we test it, we're done.
But Mr. Gazika, do you agree or disagree with the comments from the department regarding the language in the bid request, in the RFP? Was that language in there or wasn't it in there?
I would have to review it to see exactly what was said. But there was no note that I saw saying I could not subcontract.
But there was a note that says you must be able to purchase equipment, and you cannot purchase the equipment. Is that correct?
So I can purchase the equipment. I purchase equipment from all different vendors. If they choose not to sell to me, that's an issue. But then I don't know, that hasn't happened yet. In the cases where they've needed equipment that wasn't under warranty, namely the pool, where devices got wet, the city was buying the equipment and then I was doing the installation. There was no labor needed from the other vendor.
Okay, so we have a bid here. It's a one-year bid. It's $6,776 as requested by DPW. We've heard about 15 minutes of testimony. Some things we consider, some we can't, because no one here is here to speak to it, for it, or against it. We've heard testimony from DPW and from our purchasing director that language was contained in the bids requiring certain specifics. Anything else? From anyone else from the public? Any other comments from the public? I think that given the fact that it was testified to that this language is contained in the RFP and the request, that the responsibility of adhering to that bid request is that of the vendor. If the vendor is not able to meet those specifications or requirements or does not want to, then I guess you have the option of not bidding. If you take the choice of bidding and knowing that you are not able to meet the specs, I get involved in bids all the time if you don't meet the requests and the specs. And in this case, that was testified to by our two members of the department and our purchasing director, then it is what it is. So, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Second.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I would just put it out there to any potential vendors, be very cognizant of the language that's in those bid requests. I deal with this stuff all the time. I've had the same thing occur. You miss something, you don't see something, you didn't understand something, and you didn't get clarification on something. So 1 year, it's not forever. I think that it's important that the bid RFPs and specs are adhered to, and certainly next year we would welcome all vendors that have worked for us in the past or that would entertain working for us in the future to rebid again. 2019-070, water testing, found on page 65.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. The Water Department, Water Division went out to bid for UCMR testing, UCMR 4 water testing, otherwise known as an unregulated contaminants monitoring rule. It's being promulgated and required by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. We received 4 bids, and we're recommending the lowest responsible bidder, South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority, for an amount not to exceed $6,300. I know you'd like to have a couple of months to consider these bids, but when we spoke before, we waited for our budget to be approved, and now since we're in the month of July, this is testing that has to begin this month through April of 2019. This is a 1-year requirement. It will not reoccur again. What makes this rather strange in terms of the testing, this is to conduct testing to create a database for further testing and by EPA, and again, it's another example of an unfunded federal mandate that we're required to follow. And we did reach out to some of the local vendors. One of them was Rhode Island Analytical out of Warwick, and I did speak to them. They could not meet the bid price, so to speak, the lowest bid. So, and we're very happy with them, but they would have to, not to open up the can of worms again, they would have to sub that work out at a much higher and marked up price. So,
any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Second.
Thank you.
A motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. 2019-072, service agreement HVA systems, found on page 69.
I'm
Christie,
back.
you're back.
The department's requesting to award a 56-6 to Honeywell Building Solutions for the HVAC system service agreement. This is an agreement that's presented to the council every year, once a year. The amount is $11,970. That is no change from last year, but I provided in the packet the list of equipment that we have. as well as the fees for straight time and overtime. And the straight time is $184 an hour, overtime is $277 an hour. And this contract has served us well in the past.
So this is Honeywell stuff, right? So the, that fire alarm inspection thingy-dooey, was that a Honeywell product stuff as well?
The fire alarms?
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
And this stuff is Honeywell as well, right?
Correct.
Okay.
This is a whole
Okay.
different animal than the
It's
fire
a whole
alarms.
different animal?
Yes.
So did this animal in the RFP also, was it stipulated that there'd be no subcontractors in this bid as well?
This is proprietary. Honeywell comes out and specifically fixes their own.
Okay,
It's a
so
56.6.
Nobody else but Honeywell. Okay, got it. Okay. All right. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for favor. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for that information, Christie. 2019-73 mail machine lease.
The department is responsible for the postage citywide. We are requesting to enter into a contract with Pitney Bowes, who currently is our servicer for postage. If we enter into this 5-year contract, we will save $155.73 a month over our current contract. Right now, we are paying $60,179.40. We will save approximately $10,000. The requested amount is $50,835.60 for a 5-year period. That gets us a new machine, does a lot of the same functions that we have now, same service as far as postage, which we've had no issue with. And we would like to continue working with Pitney Bowes.
Christie, how much money is in that account?
I'm not in charge of the postage account specifically. I don't know what it's funded at. I want to say it's $120,000, but I might be a little off. How much is in the postage account?
It usually is at 20,000. I can walk down there and find out.
It's generally
is
budgeted.
Is Brian still in the building, or is Brian in the hallway?
Brian's in the back.
You want to get him, please? Thank you.
That's not something that the Public Works Department budgets.
No, that's fine. I understand. Because this is going to be based upon the funding for this current fiscal year. Correct. I thought it was something I said for a minute when you walked right on by. I said, this guy's boogieing.
Sorry about that. Brian Sylvia, Finance Director.
So, Brian, I need to know what the amount is in 78-205.
There was a budget of $100,000 for FY19, and to date, nothing has been spent.
It's 100,000?
Correct.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Sir?
And again, this will save the city, this new contract will save the city approximately $10,000?
Yes, over the life of the contract. We're not expending $50,000 this year. It's $10,000 a year for the lease, so it's over a 5-year period. But yes, we will save.
Thank you.
So, Christie, it's 10,000 over the life of the contract, or 10,000 per year?
Per year.
Per year. Works for me. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good job.
Thank you.
2019-074, something we all know and love, dangerous tree removal. Christie, you're popular tonight.
I swear,
I
I'm
don't know
almost done.
If that's good or...
This request goes back to a service that was done in fiscal year 18. There was a tree on Atkins Street, and we've provided the diagram to show you that for some reason the city owns an odd piece of property in between two homes on Atkins Street where this tree was located. It was dangerous. The day before we had it taken down, the family that lives in the house it was leaning towards stayed in a hotel. So we requested that the company that we have under contract come out and evaluate the tree. It was too large for them. They did not have the equipment. So we hired the Warwick Tree Service to remove it in the amount of $3,000.
Okay, I think every single person on this council has issues with these trees, both dangerous trees, neglected trees, potentially dangerous trees. I'm sure this is something we're going to be talking about a lot more going forward because we need to have a maintenance plan in place to deal with these. Any questions from members of the committee? Sir?
I just want to commend this, that, I mean, this was something that was very important, obviously, to that family. This is great preventative maintenance. I mean, can you imagine, you know, this tree coming down on their home? So I think this was good, and like the chairman said, I'd like to see more of this proactive on this, because we all have it. Yeah. And this just happens to be in 7, but it's all across the city. So.
It's always more economical to be proactive on these particular things. Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2019-75, lumber, found on page 88.
The department's requesting to award, I'm sorry.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Look, it's already been a long day.
I'm going to like break up the tension here a little bit, Christy. Go ahead.
The department is requesting to piggyback the state MPA for the purchase of lumber in the amount of $5,000.
And you need this additional $5,000 for what?
Well, what happens is we build picnic tables. If we have to replace any lifeguard chairs, we use it for miscellaneous maintenance. If we have houses that we need to secure for minimum housing, that type of thing.
Do you have any inventory now?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any inventory now? Lumber now?
I think it's low, what they have. I know they've been out doing a few houses lately, so.
Joe Blake?
That's not, well, I don't know what Joe has. Lumber.
Oh, for housing being boarded?
To the mic.
No, for you.
At the mic. Do we have any lumber still in inventory or?
Yes, I do.
How much?
I have probably 6 sheets of half-inch plywood and half a dozen 2x4s.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion in favor. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
2019-27, brass fittings and valves, found on page 93.
Good evening once again. The Water Division received 5 bids for brass fittings and valves, and we're recommending the bid be split between 4 companies for a total award not to exceed $45,000. If you recall, this was a bid that was approved last fall, and we discussed having the bid expire at the end of the last fiscal year. We would come to the council in July to seek authorization for a one-year period for a new bid. And the funding for these purchases would be split between Budget Code 84-363 and 364, again, for a total amount of $45,000.
And Dan, so why do we need 4 bidders? Or vendors? Why do we need 4 vendors?
Well, I would prefer if we had 1 vendor, but what we're doing is I'm recommending the lowest bidder for, lowest responsible for those items who meet the bid specifications. So, and we do have a couple of local vendors, and there's 2 out-of-state vendors too. So. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to really separate the bid, other than recommending the lowest bidder. And some of these items may not even be ordered. Again, it's something on an as-needed basis. The largest items, not on this bid, but that's the other bid, the hydrant bid. So. And I know we've had this discussion before, but I'm looking for the guidance, what is a low bid? You know what I'm saying? If it was part of an overall project, like we discussed before at the hearings, I could see, rather than nickel and diming and separating the bid, but these are items that come up periodically or may not even come up over the next year, but we have to have that ability to be able to purchase these items. Unfortunately, the unpredictability of what we're dealing with, the water utility, we always don't know.
So, do you have any money left in this budget right now?
Oh no, this is the budget year. We just.
But do you have any money in that for this?
Yeah.
You have some now.
Oh yeah, definitely. On this, on these two line items right now, it's 110,000 for each line item. So.
Is this going to be an issue for you if we hold this until August?
It would be, to be honest with you, because there's items that we may need to order, or we do need to order, that you know, we need to have that ability, and that's why we held it. We received the bids in late spring, and we had a discussion, and it was communicated to me to come back to the council after July, after the budgets have been approved, and that's the instructions.
I understand. Yeah, I understand.
That's the only reason. Otherwise, I would have come before.
Dan, the reason I'm asking is because when I look at these numbers, E.J. Prescott, just at quick blush, is the low bidder on 95%.
A lot of the items they are.
Of these items, they're the low bidder.
Exactly.
95% or more.
Exactly.
Correct?
I mean, I don't have a problem personally. It's not skin coming out of my back or out of my pocket.
I understand. I just want to be sure I'm not going to tie your hands with something. So we agree, E.J. Prescott is the low bidder on 95 to perhaps the lion's share of all of these things you need.
You are correct. You are correct. But again, I need to know going forward what is a low bid, what constitutes a low bid item on a product.
What we have learned over the last 18 months with the department heads and this finance committee is that it isn't necessarily conducive to encouraging people to bid on stuff when you have something like this and you have a vendor that is the low bidder on, you know, perhaps 95% of the stuff, but then this thing is split out amongst 3, 4, 5 different companies. And this is what I've been hearing from vendors, and this is what I've been hearing why they're not bidding. Because why bother?
But then conversely, I think there's companies that probably say if E.J. Prescott is the predominant largest player in the market, in the local market, and if we're not going to be competitive with some of the items, we're not going to bid at all. So it can work both ways. So.
Well, that's why they call it a competitive bid process.
Exactly.
Because if I were these other companies, I have all these bids in front of me right now. Next time I bid, I'll be doing some homework to find out what the competition is bidding and what their profit structures are, et cetera. So,
believe me, if you so desire to award it to Prescott or another, like a Warwick Windward or a local vendor, so be it. But I can tell you that we need to have that ability to be able to order some of these items if it comes up.
To order these items?
Some of these items if it comes up.
Okay.
If something would have come up tonight and we needed to purchase something, even though we try and keep an adequate inventory for some of the key and crucial items.
Okay, I understand.
So I understand where you're coming from.
Got it. So from my colleagues on the committee, so give me some input here. How do you see this? Councilman McAllister.
I agree with the chairman that we want to encourage more bidders, and I think sometimes bidders, they may think, well, you know, I did all this work and I'm being like, we look at one of the bidders, they're getting item number 4 and item number 18. And they may just be discouraged in the future to put in the time to bid if they're only going to get those two. So that's why the concerns with having, you know, all bids get it, because, you know, I understand it takes a lot of time for you to go through each particular one and figure out which one is the lowest bid. So I definitely respect that, and I think that's a very good thing overall for the, you know, the taxpayer. Obviously want to get it, but if there's one company that's around 90% at the lowest bid, you know, these other companies, they can now see what you know, their bidding and stuff like that. We just don't want to discourage people from continuing to bid if they're going to put the time and effort in to bid to our company, and then we say, well, it's going to all bidders, but, you know, you're only getting number 4 or number 18.
No, I understand, but I hope you can appreciate, and I know you do, where I'm coming from also. You could look at the flip side. It makes it difficult for us.
Thank you, Dan. Councilman Howe, any comments?
I absolutely agree with what you're saying, but I'm also at the belief that, you know, free market, free business, so therefore if one can beat the other, we go for it, and, you know, leave it in the department to order that stuff. So I think both sides can manage it, but I do believe in the free market of if they can beat the price, that's who you go with.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll move for favorable action.
Favorable action on what?
I think Councilman Howe is correct that, you know, they put the work in to see who has the lowest bid for each one, so I think for the taxpayers, for this one, on this, that I agree with that, you know, let's bid on and let's get the stuff at the lowest price that we can get, and, you know, we'll keep an eye on this, and in the future, if some of these dropped off, maybe we revisit that.
And believe me, if there's another way to do it, I'd be more than happy to sit down. I'd like to further understand the flip side, and you and I have spoken about it before, so, anyway.
And Mr. Chairman, before now the challenge is on for Stiles, Warwick, and Core and Maine to go ahead and look at these prices and see if they can beat them and compete with them, so then they can win the entire bid. So I would second the councilman's
All right,
motion.
we have a motion to accept the 4 vendors as recommended from the department. That's your motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. I need a PCR number, please.
We're at 11618.
11618. Council President Marola is going to be abstaining? Okay. All right, so 2019-27 brass fittings and valves, PCR 116-18.
Shall I make a new motion?
Favorable action. We have a motion favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That was PCR 116-18. 2019-28 post-type fire hydrants. Found on page 99.
The Water Division received 6 bids for post-type fire hydrants, and we're recommending the bid be split between 5 companies for a total award not to exceed $75,000, and all the funding for this will originate from Budget Code 84364. And this is, again, this was a bid that had expired at the end of June, coming before the council once again in July, once the budget had been approved, to seek a 1-year contract. Again, based on the same thinking.
So Dan, amongst these bidders, so we're going to go back to where we just left.
Yeah.
You're looking to award to 5 bidders. 2 of those 5 bidders, it's like 95% of the stuff they didn't even bid on.
Well, they can't bid on some of them too, because we have limitations on what they can bid. Let me clarify that, not limitations, what they can bid on anything. But the thing is, if they don't meet the bid specifications in terms of the type of hydrants, we utilize 2 hydrants within our system, and a lot of these companies are not authorized dealers for the hydrants, and that's the number one large dollar item, dollar volume item, if you will, in these bids. That's why you see some of the companies that will not bid. We primarily stock or utilize Kennedy and Mueller hydrant within the system.
You do what, please?
We utilize a Mueller hydrant and a Kennedy hydrant within the system. And those, I believe, are anywhere from like $1,600 to $1,700 per hydrant. And some of the companies are not authorized dealers for these items.
Any questions from members of the committee? Questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we are on the Finance Committee agenda right now. I need a motion for acceptance of the minutes of June 2nd.
Move for accept the motion, excuse me, motion to accept the minutes of June 2nd.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
June 4th,
Motion to accept the minutes of June 4th.
Second.
we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And June 18th.
Motion to accept the minutes of June 18th.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, all right, we're done with that. Abatements, PCR 11218, resolution relative to abatements.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Neil Dupuy, Tax Assessor. For the month, we have abatements of $2,855.95.
Do you anticipate in the next several months any increase in abatements coming up?
Well, a couple of things. The DMV changed their software, and one of the things they did was they moved the address from the registration to the license. So we do know there's some vehicles that are being sent to the wrong towns. I do think personally that we will gain from that because we're down about 3,000 vehicles from where we were last year. So my guess is if anything, some of those vehicles went elsewhere and will come back to Warwick. On the other side, we do have issues with the exemptions. We've put some new policies in place that will diminish that going forward, and we think we solved probably 80 or 90% of that. But this year, we're going to address that to make sure that we address the remaining ones for next year.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions from members of the committee? Sir?
Just the category lost/stolen, what's that entail?
That means the property owner lost their motor vehicle plates, so they didn't turn them back into the registry. They didn't cancel the registration, but they did provide documentation showing that the plates were lost.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from members of the committee, members of the council?
Question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Corley.
Can I ask I received a call today from a constituent that received their tax bill, and apparently since 1968 he's had a veteran's credit, and it wasn't on the tax bill, and they said it was, they told him it was something he had to take up with the city council.
If we can meet after the meeting, I can get the information from you. We'll reach out and take care of that.
Any other questions, Councilman Corley? Okay. All right, any comments from members of the public? Hearing none, need a motion.
Move for favorable action.
Seconded.
We have a motion for second. We have a motion favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
PCO 3716, an amendment to the purchasing ordinance. We're going to hold that till September. It'll be September 5th. No, make it September 17th.
Motion to hold is September 17th.
Seconded.
We have a motion to hold. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
PCO 2-18, tax sale policy procedures, hold till September 15th. Is that what I just said? 17th.
Motion to hold is September 17th.
Seconded.
We have a motion to hold. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
PCR 9118, ratification of the collective bargaining agreement for FOP Lodge number 7. Is anyone here to speak to that? Peter?
Peter Ruggiero, City Solicitor. I couldn't hear the first one you called, Councilman.
It was PCR 91-18, ratification of the collective bargaining agreement for FOP Lodge number 7.
Yes. 1 second. As you're aware, the Code of Ordinances require that any new collective bargaining agreements that are negotiated with the city and the locals be ratified by the council or not. So you have before you a tentative agreement which was entered into by former Mayor Avedisian and the Warwick FOP. You also have the fiscal note that was performed by Finance Department showing the impact for each year of the contract. And that was all sent out in a package previously to the City Council. And I can answer any questions you may have about the content of the tentative agreements, what's changed in the contracts, matters of that sort.
Thank you, Peter. Just so everyone knows, I'm going to move that this be sent to the floor for discussion, but prior to doing so, we will have public comment or questions from members of the council. Hearing none, we will have public comment on PCR 91-18 before we move to the floor for discussion. Anyone from the public? Sir. I'm sorry, Mr. Cody, hold on one moment. Councilman.
Yeah, I move that if we move to the floor, request top of agenda.
I'm sorry?
With a request that it goes to the top of the agenda.
Fine.
I had a second that.
Excuse me. Where's the council president? No, that's all right. So assuming that there's no objection from the council president, I have no objection to it. So both items will move to the top of the agenda.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So again, we're going to be moving this to the floor for discussion, and we will now take public comment.
Thank you, Councilman Lattiser. Can we ask questions or just comments?
Identify yourself for the record.
Rob Cody, Ward 7.
It is Mr. Cody. You're familiar with the rules. It is public comment. You can ask questions. The department head can address them if they wish, or the city solicitor, but the members of the committee will not be answering questions.
All right, I have a couple of questions and some comments. I would probably direct them to the Chief of Staff, Mr. DePasquale, and also to Mr. Ruggiero. With these new contracts, I went through both the DPW contract and the police contract, came up with $2,833,000 in raises. And I'm wondering if there has been any type of fiscal impact study performed as to how this contract and the financial aspects of this contract will impact the pension program. Is there any documentation on the impact of the pension program?
Peter, if perhaps Brian would want to comment on that as well.
I can just tell you that it will have an impact, and the council receives its auditing statement and an actuarial report. The council receives the actuarial report annually, so it will document what the impacts will be to any of the pension funds. I think the council fully understands that normal pensions are calculated on the last several years of an employee's salary. So as salaries increases, pensions contributions also increase. But that's all contemplated for in the plan. That's all contemplated for in the annual required contributions to keep the plans properly funded.
So I guess my question is, what are those numbers? And if the City Council has not received that report from the auditor, has the City Council received that report from the auditor? So they're informed, intelligently informed, when they're about to cast a vote, that they actually know what the numbers are. That's the gist of the question. Do we have that data?
on the mic, Peter.
I don't know when the reports are sent, Councilman. That's why I was wondering where finance was. But I know you get them annually. I just don't know. Oh, Brian, could you please
Brian?
help us? There was a question regarding when the council receives their actuarial reports. Yes. Yes.
The actuarial reports, they're always dated as of July 1. So I don't know if that's where the confusion lies, if there's confusion here. They're always dated July 1. We would not have that. We will be getting that in the fall, probably September, October timeframe. It'll be completed.
Okay, so it would appear that, if I'm correct in my assumptions, that this vote to ratify a contract is going to go before the City Council, and they don't have in front of them the data as to the long-term impact to the pension program. Could I get, am I correct or incorrect on that? As of this date, today, do they have that data?
Brian?
What's within, again, what's within the contract for the year is budgeted within the contractual obligations account, and that's all encompassing the salary increases as well as any impact on pension for the year.
That's my question is, does the council have that data in their hands on this date that they are going to vote to ratify a contract that has a substantial financial impact on the residents of Warwick? This is a yes or no question. Do they have that data as of today?
The actual report, again, is prepared on an annual basis. It'll be received in the fall of each year. That information will not be available until the fall of this year and that'll give you the ARC for the next fiscal year. That is done on an annual basis. It'll be prepared in the fall of each year. That is never released. You're not asking information that's possible.
I think the information is possible, and I think, in fact, it's very pertinent that when this body sits to vote on a financial contract that's going to impact every resident in this city, they need to know that. So there is a vehicle that is in place where assumptions can be made and provided to the City Council, just as a fiscal note can be provided. But I'm going to take that answer as no, that the City Council does not have that data on the impact, and they will not have that data until such time as after they vote to ratify contracts. I think that's, from a businessman's point of view, that's insane. That's ridiculous. Second point, maybe for Mr. DePasquale, we know that we have a third-party auditor that's performing a variety of services for the city. And that auditor is also, from what I understand, is performing a 5-year plan, a 5-year outlook. Do we have those numbers from the 5-year outlook? Can either Finance or Mr. DePasquale answer that question?
Is there anyone here to speak to that question? Brian?
I apologize. I was speaking to someone. If you could repeat it, I appreciate it.
We have a third-party auditor that has been engaged by the City Council, performing a variety of different tasks financially related, one of which is a 5-year plan, a 5-year financial plan for the city. Mr. DePasquale or someone from Finance, can they answer whether or not they have had the data from the 5-year plan? Do we have that data as of this date?
I have not had any interaction with the auditing firm that was contracted by the City Council.
Okay. Councilman Lattiser, so what's problematic is that there's nobody here from Finance and there's no one here from the Mayor's office to answer these questions. And I think that they need to be here right now because these are very important questions. I'm also concerned with the fact that as Council President Solomon, under his control, this council, well, President, now Mayor Solomon, then President Solomon, engaged a third-party auditing firm, CPA CFE firm. The results of the studies that they are doing, which are all financially related, have not yet been released. And I'm wondering why they're not released, and I'm also wondering, is it prudent from a fiscal point of view, from a fiscally responsible point of view, to put forth votes on contracts that have a fiscal impact on the city without those numbers? So I would really like to see that Mr. DePasquale or someone from finance, that's the reason we're here tonight, to answer these very basic questions. Now, Mr. DePasquale was here a few moments ago. I don't know where he is, but I would really like to have him answer these questions.
Yeah, I mean, if he's not here, he's not here. So, is he in the hall? Okay, next.
Well, this is pretty disturbing, Councilman, that the department heads, that we're here now with our right as taxpayers to ask questions, and to those people that we're going to ask questions for, they're conveniently not here. I mean, this is a sideshow. So, look, I'm going to come right out with it. To vote to ratify contracts that an administration that is no longer in power wrote, that was negotiated by individuals that are no longer here, that was overseen in terms of a fiscal note from somebody that is no longer here, is absolutely irresponsible to the taxpayers. I have serious questions regarding the fiscal note, only because 3 years ago when we were here, the finance officer then made a slight error in terms of his expectations on a fiscal note for a 3-year impact. He was only off by $2 million. So I have questions as to the integrity of the fiscal note, number one. I have questions as to why we do not have the 5-year plan and the impact financially before this council, before voting on contracts that will have a serious impact on the taxpayer. And I have serious questions as to why the department heads aren't here. And let me make this clear to every council member. Any council member that votes to ratify contracts on this date without this pertinent information is fiscally irresponsible and does not belong in the seat. This is basic fundamental business, ladies and gentlemen. I know none of you that are business owners would do this. You would not enter into a contract without having the details. You wouldn't buy a car without asking for the details of the car and knowing how much it costs and what your insurance impact would be. Now, there's members of this council that have worked very hard on both sides of this.
Mr. Cody, excuse me 1 minute. So you certainly are free to voice your opinion, but be careful not to engage in personal attacks or personal direct comments to anyone on the committee. Okay?
I'm certainly not doing that.
Okay.
But, oh, Mr. DePasquale is here. Okay, so we can get back to the question at hand. Mr. DePasquale.
What was the question?
The question, Mr. DePasquale, was a couple of questions were, we know that we have a third-party auditing firm that is engaged in a variety of activities for the city. One of them is a 5-year fiscal plan. Have those numbers been released to the city council, and have those numbers been studied as to what the impact of that fiscal plan will have in conjunction with ratification of new contracts?
There are a couple of questions in there. The 5-year plan that the state would like the city to complete has never been completed by prior administrations. We're working on that, but the answer is yes. Every contract that we have, and there are 2 here tonight, have fiscal notes. They're in your package. And they will outlay the fiscal considerations for the collective bargaining agreements that are tentatively approved. The municipal 5-year plan is also based on a lot of assumptions. So while the 3 years may be utilitarian and useful, one would question the 4th and 5th year based on assumptions about conditions in those 4th and 5th years. But in the package, it's clear that there was a fiscal note provided for both collective bargaining tentative agreements that are before the council.
Thank you.
So, Mr. DePasquale, I did see that fiscal note, which shows between both $2,833,000 in raises. The other question that I had was, were any assumptions taken into consideration in terms of the impact long-term on the pension plan? I believe Brian said that we will not have that data until sometime in September. So I was concerned about that. But I'll leave everybody with this note. Where are we getting the $2,833,000? I'm concerned about where that money is going to come from. We have no idea what the fiscal stability is yet of the city. And I recall about a month ago, if I'm not mistaken, during the finance meeting, we discussed for over 20 minutes spray paint, cans of spray paint, that we needed to get a better price on spray paint because we weren't sure what the fiscal stability is, and we looked at cutting some pennies from spray paint. I can remember there was discussions about fire apparatus, that we were not going to purchase fire or rescue apparatus because we did not have the report yet about what the fiscal stability is in the city of Warwick. So I would think, just by virtue of following along with that logic, that we would wait to ratify any contracts or to purchase any type of equipment with these types of numbers attached to it until such time as all that data was in front of this honorable body. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Stacia Heiler, Ward 9. This isn't a personal attack, but I think that during the Finance Committee meetings, when you have stressed throughout the entire year how you demanded that department heads be here, that tonight, the one night that's crucial for department heads to be here, considering with what's before you, that it really wasn't a big deal for Mr. DePasquale to be here. I just personally, I don't get that, but it's just my feedback. I can't comprehend for the life of me, and I know I sent out an email to all of you, how you have the Rhode Island Expenditure Council, who is currently doing an audit on the finances of the city. They're looking at the books of the city, and this isn't just to protest that our police. If there's any department in the city, I'll say this right now, that deserves raises, it is our police officers, and that's not what this is about. This is about fiscal responsibility, because Warwick taxpayers, we have no recourse. We can't look at you and come before you and say, I'm going to quit if you increase my taxes. We can't do that. We can't go out and say, I'm going to quit and make sure the kids don't go to school if we don't get our raises. We have no choice. This is why we come before you, the very few of us that do. This is why we go on social media and we get the truth out to the public about what's going on in the city of Warwick. Because we have no other recourse. And I can't understand, I don't know if this, and here's another thing you've been saying all year long, this is the year of the taxpayers. This is the year of the taxpayers. I'm going to post Mayor Solomon's video of when he sat there for 28 minutes going off about, are they going to put somebody else to run against me? We're going to work in the best interests of the taxpayers no matter what comes before me.
Excuse me.
That's on record. That's on record.
We're not going to be discussing
That's fine.
campaign issues.
Oh, it'll come up on social media.
That's fine.
I'll remind and it's on YouTube.
That's fine.
Because it was the mayor that said it.
Right now, right here, we're here to discuss PCR 9118.
Okay, which is for you to ratify these union contracts. You don't know what the fiscal, you have no idea of what the fiscal note is. We're looking at, I think it was $5 million. We had municipal COLA increases, $5 million. Do we know if that's over 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? That number? What is the COLA increase? What is the fiscal note on the municipal COLA increase for retirees? Do we have that number before us tonight? We can't get that number either. No. But you're going to increase our taxes, though, to get the money, correct? That's what we're looking at here. Because, again, we have no other, and you know what, honestly, I would have no problem. I would say, you know what, keep giving the raises and keep giving the COLA increases. If our roads looked beautiful, if the glitter was all picked up, if our beaches were clean, I would have no problem with it. But we don't get the return on our taxpayer dollar investments. We just don't. And this is why certain people speak up year after year after year and ask questions at these city council meetings because nobody else does it, which is also very sad. It looks like this is already a done deal. Councilman McAllister said not too long ago, let's make sure to put it right at the top of the agenda. We're going to get that right at the top of the agenda tonight. So that looks like it's a done deal for all of you. That's what it appears like.
Do you want to stick to the items?
This is what I'm talking about.
Accusing someone of a done deal?
Why would it be at the top of the agenda tonight? Because we have no other recourse.
Because you got a room full of people here that have a vested interest in this. And to sit through the entire council meeting, you know what? His move made sense to me.
There's a room full of people here that have a vested interest in what? Getting raises?
No.
What?
That's not my point. My point is that there are more people here now than I have seen in this chamber in a very long time.
Really? And do you know why that is, Councilman Lattisaw? Why do you think this chamber fills up the way that it does on a night like tonight? Because of what's on the table before you. Because they want their money.
Okay,
that's why.
It was already voted. It's going to the top of the calendar, and then we can discuss it then.
You know what this looks like to me? And this is just, again, my opinion. Avedisian Administration Part 2. It's exactly the same repeat, same thing going on here, because there's no fiscal responsibility going on, no fiscal accountability going on. And it's your duty, it's your fiduciary duty to make sure that you're working in the best interests of the people that keep this city operating financially. And it's the taxpayers and businesses of this city, and you're not doing it. If you're going to vote to ratify contracts tonight, before you have all of the financial data in front of you, which is your responsibility to do, you're doing everything but working in the best interests of the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Excuse me, Mr. Dempsey, the officer was ahead. You can come right after him.
Good evening. Jedediah Pino, President, FOP Lodge 7. I was just inquiring if the rules will be suspended for the council
meeting. State in the...
or if you should... or if you prefer that I comment now.
I'm sorry?
I had a prepared statement. I was asking if the rules of the council will be suspended later, or if I should comment now on the contract.
Comment now.
Okay. Good evening, sir. As I said before, my name is Jedediah Pino, and I am the president for Lodge 7 FOP. I stand here before you to speak on behalf of the contract between the city and the Lodge 7 and ask for your support and vote in favor to ratify this contract. Our lodge has and does faithfully dedicate our services to the community of Warwick. We have worked with the city in times of financial difficulties to maintain the viability of the city, along with ensuring our members are properly represented through compensation and working environment. In 2009, we took 0 for raises and did not take any monetary compensation for our holidays or clothing allowance. Additionally, we agreed to 17 weeks of a reduction in pay by 3.25% and reduced our ranks by 15 officers through attrition. Our union has worked with the administration to reduce costs and still provide police services necessary to the city. This did not come without huge compromises from the union. We are still to this day trying to increase our manning to an appropriate level. In 2012 contract, we changed our retirement for new hires to 25 years instead of 20. We additionally changed the COLA from 3% to only 75% of the consumer price index for that year. Another note that I believe is important to bring up is that former Mayor Avedisian offered $1,000 to each union employee when there was additional resources found. The FOP did not take this money as a show of good faith for the future in giving the city over $150,000 in savings. We further worked with the city to continually reduce OPEB obligations on our end in the 2015 contract by changing health care retirement from family health care coverage to single coverage. These all add up to significant cost savings for the city. We continually show our willingness to work within the city. In addition, our pension contributions have now gone to 15.69%. The mainstream media and special interest groups have waged a war on law enforcement by spreading a false narrative. This, along with changes to our pension and health care contributions, has left a dark shadow over career aspects in law enforcement. There's no arguing that changes to our health and pension systems, along with the negative mainstream media portrayal of our law enforcement, has affected our ability to keep valuable employees within our department and our ability to recruit new, young, educated men and women to fill the voids. Years ago, recruitment applications for our department would range over 1,000 applications trying to join the ranks of the Warwick Police Department. The last 2 recent recruitments yielded just over half of that combined. In March of 2016, we had a total of 339 applications. In July of 2017, we had 253 applications. After a written test and physical agility test, those numbers were cut in half due to failures. After an interview process, we are usually left with a list of approximately 50 applicants. This list will get smaller when background checks occur. Our normal eligibility list is established for 2 years. Our most recent list, which was comprised of 56 candidates, was exhausted in 8 months. There's currently a recruitment drive going on right now. To date, we have 58 applicants. That's applicants only. That's not qualified and vetted candidates. We've also found that the top candidates on our list are usually on the list of the rest of the Rhode Island police departments, as most of our recruitment efforts are generally the same time due to the police academy only running twice a year. This makes us now competing against every other police agency, to include the Rhode Island State Police, to recruit and hire the best candidates. The average recruit hired now has a minimum of a bachelor's degree. They are young, smart, educated individuals. With so few candidates and the need for more officers across the state, the candidates have choices. We need to continue to be the most appealing and best police department to work for if we are able to maintain the professionalism of this department. As our senior officers from the rank and file reach retirement age, which is occurring regularly at this time, we need to be able to fill those voids with highly qualified individuals. Since January of 2017, we have had 20 retirements. As I mentioned earlier, the current police academy runs 2 classes per year. Current staffing needs of other departments and maximum class sizes at the academy leave us with only the ability to put in usually a maximum of 10 recruits per training class. By the time the recruit graduates and gets through field training, it is at least 9 months. We are currently at a staffing level of 161 officers. 5 of those are still on field training and not able to count towards full manpower. There are additionally 8 more officers that are set to go to the July Academy starting next week, which will bring us to 169 officers. This is still 6 below the full complement of 175 officers. Recently, Wallet Hub ranked Warwick as the best city with the lowest number of violent crimes per 1,000 residents. With violent crime much higher in surrounding communities, it is a true testament to the hard work of the men and women of this department. The hard-working, law-abiding citizens of this city deserve to live peacefully. And the criminals around know to stay out of Warwick, because we will find them and hold them accountable for their actions. The reputation of our department throughout the criminals is that you stay out of Warwick because you will get stopped and arrested if you were up to no good. This does not come without the relentless pursuit to keep our streets safe by the men and women of this department. In closing, this contract preserves the manpower of this department. It keeps seasoned, hard-working, and vastly knowledgeable officers on the job. It keeps us as a premier police department that will attract new, educated, and qualified individuals, which allows us in turn to provide services to the community that are second to none. On behalf of the Warwick FOP 7, I thank you for your time and consideration in this matter.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Dempsey?
Yeah, Roy Dempsey, Ward 1. My question is, who is submitting, this budget is coming from whom? Is it coming from Mayor Solomon's contracts, negotiations? Is Mayor Solomon going to is he taking the responsibility, or is he accountable for this ratification if it does ratify tonight? And I think the way this is being proposed, it's not. I believe what we're seeing is former Mayor Avedisian's negotiations and contracts. And I believe that the public deserves, because I believe the present mayor has said that he brought the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council in to take a good look at our finances. And I would think that Mayor Solomon would want to take a good look at the contracts before himself submitting them to you as being his contracts that he has taken a look at and that he has said, hey, this looks good to both the employee as well as the taxpayer. But other than that, I look at it as being something that I don't know, maybe he can brush aside in the future and say, well, I wasn't really mine. And I don't know if he can really do that when this is being presented to you by, may have Aberdeen's name on it, but it's really Mayor Solomon's budget contract that he's asked, his contracts that he's waiting for you to negotiate, ratify. And I don't see him, I don't know why he would do that, because I was out there I was waiting for the Republic Expenditure Council.
Mr. Dempsey, I would point out that your past several comments are speculative, and they're your comments, okay? They're not the mayor's comments.
Well, as far as I know, this as submitted, this is being submitted by then Councilman Solomon on behalf of Mayor Aberdeen. It's not being submitted by Mayor Solomon, which I think right now, I think the public deserves to hear from him as to whether he's submitting these contracts for ratification. And he's given his blessings, and I haven't looked at him, as being as a council member for 20 years or how very long he was, as knowing these contract matters pretty good and saying, okay, it looks good to me, I am submitting to you for ratification. I don't want to hear about Aberdeen. I want to hear about what Mayor Solomon thinks about these. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, yes.
Mr. Councilman.
Chairman, the president's up there.
I didn't mean to elevate him. I apologize. Just a quick explanation of collective bargaining law, and good questions. These tentative agreements were negotiated while Mayor Aberdeen was the mayor, and they've been submitted to you, and I think May 21st they were actually submitted, and because of the change in the administrations and such, they're now coming before you for consideration for ratification. By law, Mayor Solomon cannot intervene in this process. It's governed by statute. There's been tentative agreements reached, and the last step in that statutory process is for this council to either ratify or not. If you choose not to ratify, then the units would have the right to either renegotiate or seek the remedy in the police, because that's the one before you currently have interest arbitration available to them. The municipal, we haven't talked about it yet, but they have a different statutory scheme available to them if they choose not to negotiate any further. They can go through a mediation process, but in either case, the city would lose authority and control over the collective bargaining process. We'll go to an arbitrator. So that's why Mayor Solomon hasn't said or done anything, because legally he can't. And I know it's frustrating to the public, it's probably frustrating to everybody here, but that's the way the law governs the matter before you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Speaking to PCR 9118 itself.
Good evening. My name is Scott Small. I'm the president of Local 1651, the Warwick Municipal Employees. I just have a couple things to bring up. We did bargain in good faith. We hold true to the things that we discussed at the table, both back and forth. We felt very good that this contract was fair for the members, fair for the taxpayers, and fair to the elected officials that are about to vote on it. The council has had, as Mr. Ruggiero stated...
Scott, you realize the one you're speaking about right now is the FOP contract, correct? This is not the municipal? I just want to make sure you're clear on what contract you're speaking about. Because you're saying that you and your unit...
All right, so I'll reserve this for later on, Councilman.
I'm sorry?
I'll reserve my speech for later on for the municipal. So I'll just end in saying I'm in favor of the FOP's contract. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure you were on the right one. Okay.
Mr. Finance Chair, members of the Warwick Finance Committee, Honorable President, my name is Bill DePasquale. I'm the Chief of Staff for Mayor Solomon. Before you tonight are two tentative agreements. I realize the one in front of us right now is the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 7. These tentative agreements that were signed in April by the collective bargaining units of both Council 94 Local 1651 and the Warwick Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 7 were negotiated with the collective bargaining units and the former mayor prior to the departure the mayor's departure, former mayor's departure for professional opportunity. It's very important that Peter's remarks remain true as fact. It's impossible for us to break what was a fair bargaining agreement by and between those parties. To this end, Mayor Solomon, who's incredibly fiscally prudent, postulates that these tentative agreements were negotiated in good faith and were fairly and equitably bargained between the CBUs and the former administration. Their fiscal impacts are accounted for in the budget, a budget that was unanimously approved by this city council. The budget line item is 75,198. Both Council 94 and the FOP have a long history of working cooperatively with the city, even during our most challenging times. For instance, in contract year 2012 to 2015, their concessions to the taxpayers was in the millions. While these units have been working without a contract for some 16 days, we have not received one call in protest, not one. Instead, and as always, these units have shown extreme patience and professionalism during this period. They have respected this body's need for more time after the budget hearings and have performed their duties without interruption. These collective bargaining units represent some of the hardest working women and men in our workforce. In most cases, they work seamlessly with our community, providing our citizenry with an array of services, disposing of our waste, plowing our streets, protecting our families, and assisting our seniors in running our rinks and pools for our children. We know municipal government doesn't manufacture widgets. It's about delivering services. And as such, we support ratification of these tentative agreements, which represents fair and compensation for hardworking employees of these units. These are the same employees that perform many of the duties that are asked by every council person in this chamber from time to time as they work to do the people's work. And I would fully hope that this council could see their hard work and give them a fair contract. It's not about vilifying city workers. This is about something that the city can afford, and the mayor is all about stretching a dollar and giving the best services for the least amount of dollars. And we believe that this contract fairly does that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments from members of the public? Hearing none, we have a motion to move to the floor for discussion. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. PCR 9218 is going to be the same circumstances. It'll be moved to the floor for discussion, and I'm sure that public comment is able to take place. But first, any comments from members of the council? Okay, members of the public, please. Sorry?
Thank you very much.
A motion that this would move to the top of the agenda as well after the FOP.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Go ahead,
I think
sir.
I'm ready now. I had a speech prepared. I'm Scott Small, President of Local 1651 Warwick Municipal Employees. For those of you who didn't hear me before, speaking on behalf of police, which I try not to do. You know, I had a speech prepared, and it had facts and figures and things like that. The council has had this in delay for a month and a half. The council has had ample time to review. I have either spoken to, met with many of the council members. Some were busy, which I fully understand, and others took the time to meet with myself and some union members, and we went over the conditions of this contract that we had ratified in good faith, bargained in good faith for. Our members ratified unanimously, which was an extreme accomplishment in my eyes. In the month and a half, I've received not one phone call asking me any questions, because I felt that we as a union did a very good job explaining to the council what the terms and conditions of this contract would be for the next 3 years. I would have gladly answered any that came my way. So, I'm going to conclude very quickly, but I will say this. The Vice President of Municipal and I sit through many, many council meetings. Very few do we miss, as well as some taxpayers. And we sit here and we listen. There's some criticism, there's some valid points, there's some very invalid points. But I want to remind people of one thing that always crosses my mind every time when my Vice President and myself sit here. Out of 80,000 plus taxpayers, there's 5 or 6 that sit in this room. I would say that there's a great, great support unit out there for municipal employees, or they would be crowding this room against what we're going for this evening. The vote is yes or no for 3 years. We've ratified in good faith. We've been patient. We've been proud. We have been professionals, and we're trying our best to work very hard for our elected officials, and I think it shows. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Any other comments?
Stacia Heiler, Ward 9. Just leaving off on professionalism, maybe you should look into the harassment complaints that are going on when it comes to professionalism.
Excuse me, Stacia?
I mean, you should be looking into it.
Stick to this article, okay?
So, speaking, I find it interesting that it's Mr. DePasquale and Small that come before you and talk about how everything is going just the way that they like it. They just gave themselves a 2.8% COLA increase. So, of course, everything is going the way that they like it. They should also be very thankful who our President of the United States is. That's the only reason why they're getting good returns in their pension investments right now. Think about that again when you vote in 2020. You should all be waiting for the results of the Rhode Island Expenditure Council auditing report. It is your fiduciary responsibility to find out what is going on financially in the city of Warwick before you vote to ratify contracts. Let it go to arbitration. The former mayor didn't have any problem to let it go to arbitration when he was dealing with the schools, with the school union. Kids missed school. They got their way, though, behind closed doors. That went to arbitration. They got their deal. You have the same option right now to let the same thing go to arbitration, but you're not doing it. And God only knows why. The only way that all of this gets funded, the bottom line is by you increasing taxes or by you pulling money out of the $22 million that's sitting there in the rainy day fund, or you count on property tax revaluations. That's the only way that the city keeps its head above water. Those 3 ways. And again, the Warwick taxpayers have no recourse. Do you want to know why? And by the way, 5 people show up here. Thank God for us 5 people that show up here and for the amount of information that we've put out to the public and woken up so many people. And you know what people do? We have the time, I have the time, that's why I'm here, I don't miss a meeting, and this is why it's my responsibility and I enjoy putting the information out to the public. And you know what I've received? Thousands of messages from people who tell me that, thank God you do what you do because I don't have the time to be there, I'm sorry, I got to take my kid to a soccer game, I'm working, I'm busting my ass all day long to pay taxes that I really can't afford to pay, or my father's sick, I'm taking care of my sick mother. We got to work hard because our health care insurance is going up. That's what most people are doing, okay, in the city of Warwick, and why they can't be here. And another reason why they can't be here, because they said I would be sick to my stomach if I had to come in and sit in on one of those meetings. I don't know how you do what you do, but thank you. Thank you for you, Stacia, and Rob, and Roy, and Bob Cushman, and Roger, and for the few of you that show up, we thank you, because I've learned a lot. That's the feedback that we get from the public. So Scott Small speaks on behalf of himself and himself only. That's who he speaks for. He doesn't speak for us, and he doesn't speak for the taxpayers, okay? So again, the bottom line is the only way that you're able to keep the ship afloat is by increasing our taxes. You increase our taxes. It's one reason why people don't want to move to the city of Warwick and why our population is decreasing and why Cranston just surpassed us. And you're going to see that continue to happen. Drive around. We see all the blighted properties in Warwick, all of the home foreclosures with the weeds 3 feet high. We got a rat infestation problem. Okay, we can't even take care of all the blighted properties. Keep closing down our community senior service centers like Button Woods. Okay, this is what we're up against. Oh, thank you to the DPW who finally spray painted the graffiti that was on the playground. But there's still duct tape all around, you know, the monkey bars. The kids still have to grab onto duct tape. We still got that going on though. This is what we have to face. And our roads are still full of potholes. Our roads look like crap. I just come right out and say it. I really hope you're going to, that $5 million, I submitted a records request. I still haven't gotten an answer. I have to get a quote for $150 to get an answer on what the street paving plan is for the city of Warwick. Okay, this is what people who care, like myself, this is what we have to deal with. We just want to see what streets are going to get paid for $5 million. Just give us good streets. That's all we ask for. Give us something. I go on Cohasset Road. I walk my dog around the neighborhood every day. There's one little drainage system there. It's been plugged now for like 3 years. And I look down and go, I wonder when this is going to get cleaned. I just wonder. Council President Marola, you drive down Cohasset Road. You know there's this stretch of bushes. They're kind of growing into the road. You know when they get cut. When the branches just start hitting the windshields. But we have to call to get that to happen too. This is why we come here and we ask questions, because there's no accountability. We need GPS in the city vehicles for the DPW department. It's so easy for you to say, oh, we'll pull it out of the rainy day fund to pass these contracts. Oh, we'll increase taxes. But we never once heard you say, you know what, yeah, we'll pull what? I don't know. We'll pull the money out of the rainy day fund because it's worth the investment to put GPS in our city vehicles, to make sure that we have accountability with our city workers, because yeah, for people paying attention, it does really piss us off when we see you slacking off over in some shady little spot at Goddard Park, not working.
Stacia.
Okay?
Excuse me.
That's reality.
Stick to the issues.
I'm sticking to it. This is all about the municipal contract.
No, you're not sticking to it.
I am.
You're attacking people personally.
No, I'm attacking.
There's no need to attack
I'm not attacking anybody.
Who works for the city.
I am not attacking anyone. These are city employees.
Stick to the issues of the contract.
These are city employees that are funded by the taxpayers. And if I want to say that we don't like it when we see somebody slacking off in a city vehicle, I have every right to say it like I just did, and I'll say it again. Because that's who they work for, and there's no accountability. And they don't like to hear it because no one's ever stood up here before you for the last 20 years and had them hear what they don't want to hear. The truth. It is the truth. There's no accountability. So you give us no accountability. You don't give us any financial accountability. You just keep taxing us and taxing us and taxing us, and it's wrong and it's unethical. So let it go to arbitration. Whatever it is that the city solicitor worked out with Avedisian behind closed doors, it's not your problem, it's not your responsibility to pass. Because again, we're going to be paying the bill. Because the city's underwater big time. And you don't have the money. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from anyone else, from members of the public? Any other comments? Make a motion to move to the floor for discussion. Need a second.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. PCR 11018, resolution in regards to the proposed revision of the 2013 Rhode Island Recovery Acquisition and Development Grant Program. Councilman McAllister, Councilman Galucci. Councilman McAllister, please.
Thank you. Been here too long, the mic lost it. This is a grant proposal, I know a grant that the city received for recreational improvements. This details where the money would go. The improvements would be to the Green Historic Cemetery and the surrounding areas. They would have passive and active open spaces, and it would include a new park adjacent to the George Sears Green Historic Cemetery, including a new viewing/seating overlook area, a walking path, benches, interpretive signs, and a stairway from the Kettle Street to the cemetery, reconstruction of Kettle Street for use of pedestrian walking and a biking path, and selective tree clearing, loom, and seeding. That is what this grant would be used for. It requires a one-to-one match. We would be using CBG funds allocated for this.
Thank you, Councilman. Any questions from members of the committee? Any questions from members of the council? Any questions from members of the public? Sir.
I was just going to speak on behalf of the project if you needed any information.
Sure. Go ahead.
Lucas Murray, Special Project Coordinator for the city. This was a grant that we received in 2013 from Rhode Island DEM. It was originally slated for a parcel of land along the circulator project, which subsequently got built out. We just really couldn't do anything with that parcel of land. So as part of what we decided to do is reallocate this grant to doing park improvements along the previous Kettle Street and access improvements to the cemetery. Should be a pretty good project, and we're leveraging funds from CDBG to make that happen. So DEM has agreed to our request, but they required council resolution to ensure you were informed that the grant was being reallocated.
Thank you, sir. Your name again, please?
Lucas Murray, M-U-R-R-A-Y.
M-U what?
R-R-A-Y.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from members of the public? Any questions from members of the public? Hearing none, I need a motion.
Move for favorable action. Seconded.
We have a motion for favorable. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Finance Committee is adjourned at 7:35.
Guys, mind if we get right into HEW? Oh yeah, go ahead.
We'll take a brief recess before we get into HEW Committee. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine. You're absolutely right. Thank you.